So hello and welcome to the Expat Pod. My name is James, your host, and today I'm joined by Vanessa. And Vanessa, it'd be great if you can give us a bit of a short background of where you're from, where you've lived, and what you do.
Okay, hi, I'm Vanessa. I grew up in Nottingham in England, and I currently don't have a home. I currently just travel around consistently. But prior to this, I was living in France for 10 years as an expat. And I have a wedding company that specialises in destination weddings in Europe. So for that, I spend a lot of time in France, Italy, Greece and Portugal.
Perfect. I'm sure we'll unpack a lot of your travels in the main part of the podcast. So welcome to section 1 of the podcast, all about getting there. So Vanessa, this is essentially the why and how of, all the things you had to do before making the move. Let's kind of roll back to before you left home or before you left the UK. Why did you want to leave? Why did you want to explore or be an expat? What was the kind of muse for that travel?
I guess for me, so I left the UK when I was 18, so I've been officially an expat now for 15 years, and I've never kind of moved back to the UK. I did the whole gap year thing between uni and college and went travelling to Southeast Asia and did that kind of loop. It blows my mind now thinking that my parents let me and another small blonde 18-year-old with no mobile phones and no Netflix go travelling in Southeast Asia. But that kind of got me into it and really kind of threw me in the deep end as to kind of the culture shock and everything. And then whilst I was still travelling, I went to Greece on a girls' holiday, got offered a job in a bar and called my mother and told her that I didn't want to go to university anymore and I was going to live in Greece for the rest of my life working behind a bar, which, it's just very much, if you're happy, we're happy, which is great. But I'm sure there were some conversations about that going on behind my... Yeah, that's kind of how I started living abroad.
Which island was it? Zante, Coles?
No, it was Crete. I was in Malia. I was a Malia girl.
I remember when I was in sixth form when everyone was going on about holidays. I did actually never went on one at the end. I avoided that because I remember watching Sunsets and Suspicious Parents was on TV when I was leaving school, and I was like, don't really fancy that life. I ignore having that. So, yeah, I imagine that's probably what you had to live through whilst you're working in.
Yeah, it was a very different experience and fun for an 18-year-old. It taught me a lot of very interesting things.
Malakas, I'm sure, is probably one of the main things you learn.
Yeah.
Great. So then from Greece, I guess, how long were you there for?
So I lived in Greece for 5 years in the end, which was great, working mostly summer seasons. And then they have a good system in Greece where they're aware that on the islands you kind of only work in the summer, so they're quite good with kind of looking after you in the winters. So that was delightful. Lots of swimming in the sea and just very relaxed, kind of like what you see in like ABBA, and like the movie.
I was going to say, it's your Mamma Mia experience, but...
Mamma Mia experience. Not quite that classy, but, almost.
It sounds great. Were you staying on the same island the entire time, or were you island hopping, so to speak?
No, stayed on the same island. I met a guy there who his family owned a bar on the island, so easy to integrate in that instance because they already had kind of an expat group there. It was quite a nice, gentle kind of introduction into kind of being an expat and what it's like.
Oh, great. And then I'm sure we'll get into that bit a bit later, but going forward again then, so from Greece, where was your next move?
So from Greece, we went to live in Amsterdam for a winter, which didn't work out so well for me. The language barrier was really tough there. There's quite a few places in Europe that I've lived, and Amsterdam was probably the hardest to work in hospitality without speaking the language. Yeah, a lot of the bars and things that I was talking to, they needed me to speak Dutch, which I didn't at the time. I still don't. I don't know why I said at the time. And so I found it quite difficult in Amsterdam, and obviously the cost of living was a lot higher compared to when we were in Greece. So any money that we did have from Greece didn't really translate very well over into kind of getting settled in Amsterdam. So we went back to Greece for a summer. And then the following year, we moved to France for a winter season to do a ski season in the chalet, which was fantastic. And I'd recommend to everyone and anyone. It was just a completely different experience.
Right, and which was that in the same place you were living before, so Alpine town?
Yeah, so that was in the French Alps in a place called Morzine, and I ended up staying there for 10 years in total, and really kind of building a base there and a home there. And
So what drew you to the Alps? Did you ski as a child or?
No, absolutely nothing. I never skied before. Well, I'd been on a school ski trip once, but like I had been on ski family holidays, and we were in Greece and we just needed a way to earn money in the winter. So I was just looking online and found a job board and applied with a link of jobs in random places. I'd never heard of Morzine before. And this really cool company who looked like really high end, who I thought had read our CVs wrong, offered us a job. And Googled it and I was like, this place looks cool. And so we just moved there, and it's one of the most beautiful places in Europe, I reckon.
Brilliant. And then what made you then now kind of pack up and have a kind of a European nomad lifestyle?
So 5 years ago, I started a destination wedding company called Mountain Weddings in the mountains. And it's been really good. It started just as COVID hit, so we've had our tough times, but in that first couple of years, like, we were featured in British Vogue 3 times. We've been like featured on BBC. Like, we've had loads of really good press, and like we've done really, really well. We've expanded to like 6 different countries. But for me, the small ski town life just stopped serving its purpose for me. I needed to be in situations where I was being pushed more and more entrepreneurial and more kind of being a small fish in a room, you know, and just kind of going into places and wanting to learn from people. Whereas in a ski resort, to be that person, you have to be really into skiing, or like it's very kind of be a small fish. Like I was a small fish in a room full of expert skiers, but I didn't want to be an expert skier, you know. So it was just, I feel like I'd done my time there, and it offered me so much, but it was no longer offering me what I needed. So I decided. I originally then moved down like an hour down the mountain to a place called Annecy.
Yeah, being there, it's beautiful.
Yes, so beautiful for a year. And there was a great kind of expat community. There was women business networking groups, and that was all wonderful. But I just travel so much now for business that I was just paying all this money on an apartment, and I was never there. So I decided to pick up the apartment, and now I just go from Airbnb to Airbnb, mostly around Europe, expanding my business.
Incredible. And where are you right now then, out of curiosity?
Right now I'm back in Greece, where it all began.
Same island, same place?
Same island, not the same place, but same island. And I'm here for 4 days, and then I go to Ireland for 3 days, and then I go to France for 10 days. So yeah, it's a lot of moving at the moment, but it's also our summer season, so it's also our busiest time.
And then I guess in terms of visas and things, because the UK hadn't done Brexit when you left, you didn't have any issues with finding work permits or anything else?
It's the saddest thing to come out of Brexit. So I left the UK already living in France and paying taxes in France when all that came in. So I got French residency quite easily. So now I'm a French resident, which means that I can travel around, which is great.
Right. And did you need to do any language tests for that, or is it just live there, pay tax?
Not for residency, citizenship. It's a language test, and it's a language test about like French history and things, which I don't think I could do for the UK in English. So I don't know how I do it in France.
I mean, my friend did his. He's South African. He did his British citizenship, and he's asking me all these questions about things I don't know. And I was like, I didn't pay attention in history. I didn't. Maths and physics is all I already cared about. What is history? Now I'm a bit better, but still, he was asking me these questions. I was like, no, like, I'd like to know more. Please give me your book when you're finished with it. But yeah, we didn't have to learn. We probably did learn it in school. We didn't have to learn it to pass.
No.
I felt really awkward because I was like, I'm really bad at being British. But then most of my friends also wouldn't probably know the answers to those questions.
No, like the Hastings 1066, all that, you know, but doing that.
Is there anything else you needed to do before you moved in terms of like, finding jobs, was just job boards and other things? What kind of websites did you use for the job boards?
So I think it was, I don't know if it's still going, something called Natives, and that's kind of ski resorts and things. It's definitely getting easier now, I found, talking to kind of my friends who still live in Morzine and hire people from the UK to kind of, people are kind of understanding how to navigate getting sponsorships and working visas and things again now, which is lovely. That's so good to hear. For me, I'm a bit of I'm quite impulsive. So I don't quickly think through any of my moves or plan I'm more, I'll get here and I'll figure it out. Which has always worked out for me, you know, and I'd say like I've lived in probably nearly 20 countries now. Only 5 where I've kind of got a bank account and really kind of set up, but like for more than a month, 20, 30 countries. And, you know, there's kind of tricks and things that you can learn. But I think sometimes the hardest thing is just doing it. And just, like, I remember when I first left home to go back to see this boy who I'd met in Greece. And I packed up all my bags and things. And I remember being in Manchester airport, going through security, crying my eyes out, thinking, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. It was the first thing I ever did, you know? And it's just get on the plane and just do it.
Yes, completely. You can always come home, right?
Yeah, right. It's only a plane right away. What's the worst? Well, bad things that can happen, but you know, it's only a plane.
Yeah, wonderful. Is there anything else you want to talk about before you kind of moved abroad, or shall we get into the more, I guess, the main bulk of the podcast, I suppose?
Not really. I think that's everything about before.
Perfect. We'll see you in section 2. So welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to session 2, all about being there. So Vanessa, this is essentially, I guess, recalling your time in all these amazing places you've lived, if we have enough time to do it. Because obviously, as you say, you've lived in a lot of places. But shall we go to Greece first? What was it like? Obviously, you went on a girls' holiday, so you probably went and just listened to a lot of loud EDM or I guess what alcohol pops and
Fish
lots
bowl.
of drinks. Bowls. Once you kind of moved there permanently, got this job, what was it like? What was your experience of that? Was it what you expected it to be? Was it the honeymoon period kind of was the one first of all, and how long did it last?
So for me, I do think I was really lucky when I first moved to Greece because I automatically fell quite quickly into an expat group. I think working in hospitality really helps. I think, you know, kind of working in bars, you do automatically kind of find people very quickly to socialize with. And so it was great. It was very easy for me in that scenario. You know, there's, especially kind of on the Greek islands and things, most people speak English predominantly. Even the Greeks in the towns and things will just speak to you in English first. And so there wasn't that kind of scary language barrier, or, you know, if something went wrong, you can speak English. The one thing that I would say was kind of really then kind of showed that there was a barrier was, so my brother came out and lived with me for a few years, and me and my brother were really, really close, best friends. He's 3 years older, but everyone thinks he's younger. He went missing one day, and everyone was like, oh, Vanessa, like, stop being silly, like, you know. And I was like, no, I can feel it, like, something is wrong, like, I know something is wrong. No one would believe me. And like 3 days went past, and I got myself so worked up, and we were calling the police, we were calling the hospitals, and just neglect, no anyone or anything. And then he messaged me on day 3 and was like, don't panic, I'm in the hospital, can you bring my passport? I need you to come and help me. And he'd crashed his motorbike 3 days prior. There'd been, like, the police had been there, everyone had been there, and they'd, like, told me there were no accidents. And then, like, getting to the hospital, and he'd been left kind of in a corridor. He wasn't checked into the hospital properly. He'd shattered his hip, so he couldn't walk, and got a catheter or anything, so he was just weighing into water bottles. Like, there was definitely that was the first time that I saw that there is a division, you know, there is a, and I'm sure it's not like that all the time or everywhere, or, you know, this was 10 years ago now, so maybe it's got better. But there was definitely that kind of, like, that wouldn't happen in the UK, right? You wouldn't, English person in the UK, that wouldn't happen. So I'd say 95% of my Greek experience was incredible, and it was very easy to integrate and become part of the community. And that was kind of the only real thing that I really struggled with and got quite frustrated with, was kind of the side and the emergent, like, what happens in an emergency side.
Well, how long into that your stay was that? Quite late, or?
I think that was 2 years. I think I'd been there 2 years when that happened.
Okay, wow. So how was your Greek at that point? Was it pretty good, or was it average? Non-existent?
I mean, I knew enough to be polite and also sometimes trick people into thinking that I knew more.
Okay. I mean, that's quite a good skill.
But
I had a Greek housemate in uni and I could not understand a word. She was trying to teach me Greek and I was like, I'm sorry, no. I just know bad words.
just this one. That's all.
And then she was like, well, you're basically Greek. And I was like, okay. In healthcare, how was the day-to-day life? What was it like in terms of, you said you've joined an expat community. Was that predominantly British people? Was it people from all over Europe? Was it any local Greeks in that group?
Predominantly British. I'd say that I was quite naive when I was that young, and didn't particularly reach out to the locals and the Greeks. And, you know, I'd really advise that now. Like now I'm older and wiser. But definitely at that point in my life, I was like very happy with my little bubble of English people and Welsh people. Yeah, I think I wouldn't advise that now. I think that was a bad move, and I mean it showed, right? It showed when I needed someone to help me with the hospital and everything like that. You know, we didn't get very far because we're the stupid English people who can't speak their language, and yeah, and you know, I didn't see real Greece. I was in Greece for 5 years, and you know, I come back now and I see 10 times more real Greece than I ever did when I was living here.
Well, it's the arrogance of youth, right? It exists, especially when you're young and you're just like student age. You tend to just want to find the bars and clubs and events going on. I remember I went around Budapest. Didn't really see Budapest because we were too busy going out, but I'm sure it's beautiful. It was beautiful what I saw, and the day after was great, but you know, going to ruined bars was more important to me when I was 21 than, you know, going to culture spots. I think it's not as important. And yeah, it's always the case. So then you moved from Greece to the mountains. Obviously you did a bit in the Netherlands, but I guess not enough to really have an opinion, or like you said the language was really difficult. I guess Amsterdam is renowned for many things. Hospitality industry is quite good, especially for a lot of tourism. So I guess for you, it's a great place to have chosen to go. Did you get any work though? Was it just trying to find work?
The only work I got in the end was I became a party crawl rep, which was great. I had a lovely time for a couple of weeks, and then I think it was St. Paddy's Day, and obviously part of my job was to kind of go out and have fun with everyone and encourage them to drink. And I came home quite drunk, and my boyfriend was like, I don't think you should do this job anymore. And I was like, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. So no, the Amsterdam was quite, I think we were only there in the end for 5 months. I also lived in Malta for 4 or 5 months, which again was quite a similar experience. Not in the way of language, more in the way of just, I struggled a lot in Malta with working in the bars, and the way that I got treated as a wasn't quite to the level that I would have liked it to have been. And I tried like 3 or 4 different bars and restaurants, and by this point, you know, I'd been running cocktail bars all over Europe. I had good knowledge and experience. But, you know, I was then getting paid, I think it was like €1.20 an hour in Malta, something ridiculous, and not allowed to have an opinion and to unbutton my shirt, you know, that kind of. So I didn't quite get on with Malta. So then, yes, moved to France, and France was incredible for me. Like as a person, France really was the place that I grew.
Right. And what was your first impression of France, and saying you didn't know much about the place or much about the town you were going to move to? What were you expecting, and what was the reality when you arrived?
To be honest, before I went to France, I always thought I'd never live in France. It's a bit too close to the UK, you know, like a hop over. And I always thought, if I'm going to move somewhere really cool and really far away. And like, you know, France was just, we learned French in school, and we went there and ate snails once. So, you know, it was kind of by chance that I got the job in France. It was going to be a winter season, and then I just loved the lifestyle. Like Morzine is such a fabulous little town. It's so, I think because I'd come from Greece, where it's very heavy on kind of drinking all night, sleeping all day because it's too hot, to then go to a lifestyle where you're outside all day in the mountains is just such a change, and it's incredible, and it's beautiful, and it's just, yeah, all great.
Amazing. And then how did you find that in terms of making friends with people? Did you find it with other expats as well, or was it a bit mixture of both locals and expats? What was it like in France?
So the towns are full of expats, like all of the ski towns, like all of them in the French Alps have got really big expat communities, which you can simply, like, even before you go, they've all got really good Facebook groups that are full of English speaking people offering jobs and accommodation. It's an easy way to kind of get into the Alps. There's definitely a really nice community of people, and I think because it's a very active lifestyle, it kind of encourages a lot more kind of groups and socials, and like it's a really good expat community over there. And because of that, also there's a lot of help. So when you're moving to a new place and you don't know the language and you don't know how to get on the healthcare, French paperwork isn't easy. It's not easy anywhere, I guess, but enough expats there who make money from just putting these applications through and telling you what you need to do, what you need to translate. It's never too much money. It's more time and just kind of waiting for things and just making sure it's done right, because it just otherwise will drag out for years. But yeah, it was a easy move.
And how did you find the social side? You said do you do more groups and things with that? Were you getting a ski pass for a day with people skiing? Were you doing other things like language cafes, or what was the kind of major activities you might have done there?
Yeah, so we the job that we had, luckily, also there was another kind of 20 people of a similar age, expats. So like we automatically had a really good kind of group of people around us who spoke our language and things like that. And then there was a language swap at one of the local breweries every Thursday. So we used to go to that and just and then we made friends there. And then, I think there's two, I always find there's two types of expats in a town. There's the type that have been there forever and they know that people come and go. And so they're always a little standoffish, they're like, you're probably only here for 6 months. There's not really any point in me putting any time in with you, because I've been here for 14 years and I know you're probably just going to leave. And so I'm just going to stick to my friends who I know are going to have babies. And then there's the ones that are really excited to meet everyone, And, majoritively, I always think there's probably like a 20-80% split, with 80% being the really lovely. Like, if you're there as an expat, you're there to meet people. You've left home and you want new experiences and you want to have new friends and you want to grow your mind. And therefore, I find that, you go to like one language group on a Thursday night and you'll meet 5 people, but then you'll talk to them about something you're passionate about. And they'll be like, my friend Joe also has a charity in India. You should speak to them. And then it just kind of very easily snowballs. And so, yeah, I think the expat community in most places is always quite friendly and really delightful.
Did you spend much time trying to learn French when you were there? Did you get tutoring lessons or teach yourself on Duolingo? Was there any way you explored?
Well, Duolingo and that Duolingo streak.
Am I still going? It's like 700 days now. I can't. I know. I'm scared. I'm scared to get rid of it though. It's like, just got to do a quick 10 voices. That's what.
To be honest, I was very lazy with my French language. We did some private lessons. We did some language exchanges. I'd say that my French is very kind of tailored around the jobs that I've had. Like when I first moved there, we were working in chalets and I started to run a cocktail bar. But I can speak to you about espresso martinis in French very, very well. But politics in French, not so much, And now I can speak to you about weddings in French, but ask me about space engineering, no idea.
Ask me about that in English, I still wouldn't know. I'm an engineer, right? It's very interesting. It's a good point, because when I was in Sweden, I can't speak Swedish, but I could ask for a table and I can get food. I know words for very basic things, but I couldn't have a conversation with someone about stuff. It's just like, I can order food, I can get a taxi, I can go and call the police. Nothing else. No. Don't need to do it. It's, just for anglais.
Yeah, we had a wedding last week in France, and I went and I could try and go to some of the weddings, and there's one that I went to, and at 2:00 in the morning, one of the bridesmaids was trying to do a really cool dance move. Hit her head, gashed her head open, And as the only sober person at the wedding, I had to drive her down the mountain to the local A&E. And, I get there and I can't translate, like the A&E staff only speak French. And I'm really struggling because I've never had to say before, like, I've never had to understand before, like, these questions that they're asking me, like, and, there's certain words and stuff that you can kind of translate a little bit. But I'm like, I promise I can speak better French than this. It's just, this is really out of my comfort zone. I really have no idea what all these medical terms are at all. So yeah, pointing at it,
Just look at it. She's obviously in pain somewhere. Wow, that's funny. And then obviously you started your company when you were living in France. So how did that kind of manifest itself? Were you inspired by weddings before? What kind of made you go into that industry?
There's a really cool venue on the lake. There's a lake in Morzine, and there's a really cool venue that's a community hall, but it's like overlooking like picturesque lake you've ever seen. It's got like these sheer cliffs, it's got waterfalls, and then it's like this big glass building that overlooks everything. And so in the winter, it's like a perfect winter wonderland. In the summer, it's like this gorgeous alpine lake. And it's a community hall, and it costs like a few grand to hire, like something that should 20, 30 grand to hire. And I used to walk around that lake all the time, and I was like, people should do weddings there. And people were starting to do weddings there, and there's some French companies, but no one really pushing it to the UK market. And so I just went for it, and then I was really good at it. So then it just kind of quickly expanded and snowballed, and now here we are.
Was it hard to set up a business in France? Were there anything you had to do in terms of legal things for registering a business? Was that easy? Did you have help? Did you use like a solicitor or something?
Incredibly difficult. We, as a business, I never wanted us to do weddings in the UK, just because for me then it wasn't a destination wedding, and I wanted to do it in all these exotic places. Recently, we started doing weddings in the UK, and I'm like, my goodness, being able to speak to a supplier in English as their first language, being able to read a contract in English, I'm like, it makes my life so much easier. We had to pay a lot of people to help me, and that leaves a lot of trust in people to make sure that they know what they're doing. I think the biggest thing for me was, so we've actually now just swapped the company to a UK company, because we were, I have an accountant and I have no idea what they're charging me for. Like, they're just making all these numbers that come out of their ears, and they're saying to me, oh, you need to do this meeting and you haven't done this. I don't speak the language well enough to be able to, I don't know business well enough in the UK to, like, I'd need to sit down with an accountant and be like, okay, can you explain this to me? Do I need to do it every year? Like, what is it? What's it for? And I don't have that relationship with my French accountant. And then all of a sudden I've got another $3,000 bill for something. And I'm like, you could literally be asking me for this, and I've got no idea whether or not you're,
yeah.
And it's funny actually, because we spend a couple of grand a month on our accountancy fees in France. And when I first moved to the UK, the accountant looked at my books and he was like, okay, so it's going to be about a couple of grand. And I was like, right, okay. And he looked at me and was like, oh, but if you want, we can like spread that out over the year. And I was like, wait, sorry, you mean a couple of grand a year? And he was like, yeah, about a couple of grand a year. So like, I've automatically saved 20 grand just moving the business to the UK. I mean, taxes and things in France are it's notoriously high. A bad place to have employees and things. It's very much about the employee, not the employer, and which also is great in respects. And
if you're the employee, it's great. If you're an employer, okay.
When I was an employee in France, it was the best thing ever. But yeah, I really struggled, and I still struggle with. So we're closing down the business at the moment. Again, there's all these things that just, it's really difficult, and it's not so much online. I haven't found any kind of good resources online that help English people necessarily who are living in France with their businesses and explaining it in a way that's easier to understand. There's some like government sites, but they talk in jargon that, I'm good at business, but I'm not intelligent in that way, so it has been very difficult. And the relief of now having the company set up in the UK has just been, I didn't realise quite how stressed it was making me. So yeah, I definitely say if you're going to do it, have the money to invest, or a business partner who knows the French laws and the French systems, because it's not that straightforward.
So there's a niche market you found yourself as well, to helping foreign countries in France, companies in France. Sorry, it could be a niche for someone. Incredible. So will that affect your right to stay in France then, or do you have to get a visa now if you're moving your business from there?
So I've got a 10-year residency card at the moment. As long as I stay in France for 90 days, then I shouldn't lose it. But when it comes up for renewal, I think I'll probably lose it, because by then I probably won't be paying taxes anymore in France. So I've got till 2032 to make all my money and then not need visas anymore, because I'll be so rich.
But I think you can qualify for an MO visa, or right, because I guess if your money's coming from abroad, but you're living there, then as long as you're spending money in that country, they can probably give you a visa. I think that does exist from people I've spoken to. Like, see if you did want to stay there, you might not want to. You might want to move back to Greece, or France, Spain, Italy.
Yeah, definitely. I think once you've got a lot of money in the bank and you can prove it, and you're not going to go on the dole and things like that, I think it's a lot easier, right, to kind of move in these countries.
Yes, always. Money helps. Is there anything else you've kind of needed whilst you've been living abroad? Have you dealt with homesickness in any way?
I might listen to this, so I should say yes. I've been very lucky. Parents kind of, when I go to places, they just follow me. So, they just kind of turn up, and they learned to ski when they were 60. And, my dad now skis and snowboards. My mum's a very good skier. And that's been a really lovely experience to have, that has come out of me moving away. It's just kind of, now we have these really good core memories that I never would have had before. When you live close to your parents and your family, I feel like when they roast, we might pop round one night, but you don't really talk or do anything or experience anything. And now, it's very intentional time that I have from my family. Like, they come and see me, and we have these great experiences. And we're going to South Africa this year for 4 weeks, because I went last year for a couple of months, and I was like, you've got to come with me next year. We're going to go see the whales, and we're going to go to the safaris, and we're going to go wine. And I think for me, I don't really, and also I guess I've been away for so long now that I don't consider it as home anymore. My parents kind of left the family home, so I don't think I get homesick as such. I think what I've really had to learn, especially since I've not got a home anymore anywhere, kind of remembering time to rest. Like, when your life's like a constant holiday because you're constantly moving to all these places for work, it's kind of, you don't just get a week of kind of nothing, like a 9 to 5 where you just sit on the sofa for a week and you don't have any plans and you're not trained, and you don't get that. So kind of intentionally putting that time in, for me, kind of is really important to kind of keep my mental health in a good place.
And how have you found that now with your kind of nomad lifestyle? If you're moving around after a short period of time, it's hard to establish friendships, it's hard to establish routines or activities you might do, that you can't go to the same yoga studio every week, or you can't go for a running club or whatever, or a skiing club. How have you found that in terms of mental health? Because if you're constantly moving around and you're not being grounded in that sense by location, have you found other methods to do it?
So I, maybe kind of up until about 6 months ago, I was getting very lonely. I do this lifestyle by myself, and I remember being in Sri Lanka in February this year. I got really, really sick and ended up hospitalized, and I came out of that experience and I was like, why was I in Sri Lanka? I'm in Sri Lanka because I've always wanted to go there, but going as a single female by myself, I wasn't going out in the evenings because it's too dangerous in the places that I was in to be going out by myself in the evening. So I'm just sat in an Airbnb by myself. And, I kind of also, when I went to, and then before Christmas that year, I was in South Africa, and it was the same. I didn't feel safe going out in the evenings, and, kind of, it can get very lonely, especially when you're just kind of in an Airbnb. And yeah, I work remotely. I work really well actually in the evenings. So I do a lot of my work in the evenings. But I think I then did a shift kind of after the Sri Lanka hospital experience. And I was like, just rather than kind of being like, I've never been to Ecuador before, I'm just going to go there for 6 weeks because I can. Now I'm more kind of I've planned out summer to kind of, I've come to Greece because I've got loads of friends here when I was here before. I'm going to Ireland because I've got friends there having a christening, and then I'm going to France and I've got a really good community there still, and just kind of being a lot more intentional with why I'm going to places, and then making sure that kind of I have a community there already, or if I don't, I've actually just joined a really cool networking club that is for women that is all around the world. So just then kind of like, okay, cool. Well, I want to go to New York. Let's plan a date around when they've got a networking event on at the beginning of that week, and then I'll make friends there, and then I've got people that I can speak to that week. And just being a bit more intentional and not just kind of, that sounds like fun, let's go there by myself, you know.
Have you used apps like Meetup before? Because I used it quite a lot when I was living in Sweden, and it was really good. And you can plan like there's a lot of, well, in Gothenburg there was a expat drink or socialise group, and every Tuesday they would go to a bar and just hang out. It was great fun, and you meet a lot of people in the same situation as you are.
Yeah, Meetup is great, and they have like a lot of the comedy nights and stuff. I think it can be quite daunting for someone who doesn't kind of network or whatever, but I think it's just important to remember that everyone who's gone there has gone there to make new friends, and just kind of, you know, like everyone's not already there and in a group and doesn't want anyone else to join, and just kind of like, you know, like it's not a schoolyard kind of, these are our friends now and you're the outsider, you know, it's very...
With the cool kids.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's quite easy to kind of talk yourself out of going to those things and kind of not putting yourself out there. But I think it's just so important to remember that everyone is there to meet more people, and they're all like-minded people like yourselves. And, you know, if you can always leave. You know, I always say, go for 10 minutes. And if it's really horrible, if the people are really mean, just go home. I've never gone home.
Well, not until much later, I guess.
No, not so much.
Well, you're still travelling now, you're still going home, I suppose. There's the home to go to. Is there anything else you want to kind of add about your life in all these incredible places? Or if we kind of scrape the barrel, so to speak?
I think you scrape the barrel there.
Perfect. Well, we can go into section 3. So welcome back to the podcast. So welcome to section 3, all about kind of a review of your time, Vanessa. So this is essentially... Let's go back to the beginning, and if you could, I guess, ask or tell yourself something from when you first moved, a bit of advice, doesn't have to be something to change or do differently, just more like what might you try and do more of, or anything like that. Is there anything that comes to mind when you kind of think, what might younger me have liked to have known?
That's really difficult. I think, like, I'm super happy with everything that I've done and how it's worked out. And, you know, like, I know that, you know, when I first came out here to Greece, I shouldn't have quite drank as much and partied as much and all that, but, you know, I needed to do it, and it was a point in my life. And, you know, now I'm in Greece and I'm in bed by 10 and I'm up at 6 to go for a nice walk, and I see all these people walking home at 6 a.m. and I'm like, you know, so there's always a time and a place. I think in regards to, I think my big thing that I would love to tell myself when I was younger is just trust in yourself and trust your gut. Like, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be great. It's going to be better than you can even imagine. But just trust your gut, and just, you know, I've got a good gut. The bad situations I've got myself into, I knew I like, you know, I should have listened to it. But then also I think that's part and parcel, right? Like if I choose a lifestyle where I'm consistently traveling around the world and putting myself in these situations, things will happen that are fabulous all the time, compared to, you know, if I stayed home and lived with my parents and worked 9 to 5 in a place down the road. So, yeah, sorry, I kind of sidebarred. I think it would be, if I could tell it's to trust yourself, it's all going to be absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, no, I think as you're living now, I suppose, is testament for that. You know, you've obviously achieved so much because you've been abroad, and, you know, those things you might have done when you were younger kind of forged you, or forged who we are, you know. And a lot of people go and drink too much when they're younger because it's the age to make mistakes. So actually, there's no limit. I still make mistakes now, right? So, and I'm sure 20 years down the line, I'll still make mistakes, but I'm learning from them. I don't really care. And as long as the magnitude of those mistakes and the repercussions aren't either financially crippling or physically crippling, then I should be fine.
Yeah.
If you could, I guess, give someone advice who wants to go and work in hospitality abroad, what might you tell them? What might you share with someone who's, you know, just leaving school now, wanting to do what you've done?
I'd say kind of, it's not as hard and as overwhelming as it can seem. I definitely think sometimes actually you can get so much further by going on a week's holiday somewhere. Like, you know, like if you want to live in the French Alps, go for a week's holiday to your favourite ski town and go talk to some bar owners. You know, half of them are English or speak good enough English. They'll point you in the right directions. They'll tell you where to go. Same like go to Greece, go on holiday for a week. You know, you'll talk to the owners of the businesses. And I've never found an owner of a business to be like, they're not going to shoo you away or tell you to get lost. You know, I mean, if they're busy, they might say come back later. But I do find in general, like business owners are always happy to kind of help. And I think rather than getting overwhelmed, and online there's so much information and there's so many kind of different rabbit holes you can go down, actually just pick a place that you want, go there for a week and just talk to the people on the ground there. Find a couple of the groups. Find the Facebook group that has the local expats in it. I don't know any town that I've been to that doesn't have one. And post in there that, like, you know, you're here for a week and you'd love to, is anyone around to kind of meet up or talk through, or like talk through how to transition into living there, and there's people love to give their opinions, right? So there's always someone that will come back and be like, yeah, cool, I'll meet you for a beer and I'll tell you everything you need to know. And they might not be the most helpful person, but you know, you're getting the information, and I think that's definitely the easiest way to kind of do it.
Wonderful. That's great advice for sure. Yeah, there's always people with opinions. There you go. Very true. I guess my next question is, what's next for you? Are you going to keep traveling around? Do you have a destination in mind you want to eventually call home again? Or is it just, you know, carpe diem, I suppose?
At some point, there probably will be a home. It's funny, like every relationship that I've been in has always ended, and the male always turns around to me and says, you know, Vanessa, you're never going to find anyone who's going to want to live your lifestyle. And I'm like, that's fine. I love my lifestyle. You know, like if you don't want to be in it and this isn't working, that's fine. But like when I think of my year, like this year, I've, you know, been in Sri Lanka for 2 months. I then have been between Italy, Greece, Portugal, France. Like I'm going to South Africa again for 2 months. And then skiing or wind, like it's so great. And I get to do all these experiences with all my favourite people, and I can't see when that's going to stop. Everyone's like, if you had to pick one place, where would it be? I have no idea. I don't think I found that place yet. I think it will be the people that will keep me in a place, which is really nice. I think that's a really lovely thing. I 100% can say it won't be in the UK, but I don't see it. I think it will be, at some point, it will be the people that kind of anchor me to a place. I also own a charity in India, you know, like kind of...
wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I said that's amazing. That's literally just said 2 words that I was more just reacting to. That's so cool. What's the charity about?
So we're helping women and children, specifically like young girls who've been left on the streets. Women or girls in India are still seen as a liability and not an asset. And, you know, there's still like unsafe abortions while they're figuring out they've got girls. And there's a lot of horrible things going on. So we're trying to get these girls off the street, which is really, really cool. I've been through quite a lot of things myself. I nearly died a couple of times, quite a lot of sexual assault. I've been mugged several times, you know, and then I go to India and these women, they have all these things happen all the time. And it's a very daily occurrence. And, you know, like as a Western woman, I'm like, oh my God, this terrible thing happened. That was their Tuesday. And so I was like, you know, it's very, I don't say easy for me to help as a Western woman, but it is, you know, like you don't even have to give them money. Yeah, just by being there, you're helping, you know. And I gave a charity years ago. It's now been charity and my business. I don't know where my home would be or I don't think I'll stop for a while.
Doesn't need to be anywhere, I suppose. If you with your work, you can just keep moving, and you know, and if someone wants to join you in that journey, then you know that's great for them. But if you don't need someone because you're having this amazing lifestyle and you've got all these friends on these places, then you know, as long as you're happy, it's what matters, right? There's all this pressure of people like you know, having to live with people and compromise when you don't need to. Keep doing what you're doing, but also, you know, it's amazing your story, what you're saying before, and you said obviously it's just a Tuesday in India, but it still doesn't mean what's ever happened to you should ever be, you know, diminished. It's awful and should never happen in any industry or any country, any part of the world. It reminds me of talk I went to with Annalyn McCord. I don't know if you know who she is, but she was the actor from 90210. She played one of the main characters, but she did a talk in Oxford where I was studying, and she talked about her own experience of sexual assault when she was in New York, and it was someone she knew and all this stuff. And she now had a charity of, helping people who are being trafficked from Cambodia. Kind of what you were saying, it's happening a lot worse there, but still doesn't make what happened to her or yourself any less horrible or completely, why do men have the, thought of even, or the pure selfishness to do that? I'm sorry that happened to you, and sorry for my gender. Just, yeah.
I've been
hearing that a lot.
And I think some tricks, right? There's definitely like something that I'd love to tell people who, want to travel solo. And there's definitely like 5 or 6 things that you can do that definitely help and make it safer. So I have a fake engagement ring that I wear. And honestly, like, I think it's probably the most powerful thing that I do out of all the things I do to try and keep safe. Automatically tells another person that probably knows where you are. Like, you might be alone. This person probably knows where you are. And they're going to call you. We're going to check up on you. And you're not as available, I guess, even though sometimes it's matter. And then just like the common sense things of, like never saying you're alone, like, oh, I'm just going to go meet my friend. Or like, there's a lot of tips and tricks that you can do, and you kind of learn as you're going, like 2 mobile phones. So that if I carry them both with me, if I ever get stopped and they take my mobile phone, I'll give them my old broken one. So I'm not left without a mobile phone.
The burner phone, yeah.
It's a burner phone. You can have that one, it's fine. Yeah, there's definitely, there are downsides to traveling alone as a woman, but I think as long as you're aware of things and, like, always walk with purpose, like, you're never lost. The amount of time I've walked, like, down a one-way street and I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I walked with such purpose, like, I knew where I was going past those men, and, like, I'm not, like, wandering around.
My girlfriend's really good at doing that. She's always strong and wrong. She'll get off a train or get somewhere and she'll turn one direction and keep going, and I'm like, it's the other way. And she goes, but here's the commitment of just knowing where you're going. And she lived in London for years. It might be a similar thing of just, if you live in a big city, it's populated, you just have to appear like you're, heading for somewhere where you're going. And
yeah,
for me, I've never really lived in a big city. I guess Liverpool being the biggest. Gothenburg is the same size as Liverpool, so yeah. So not that many big cities. So yeah, I've not had that issue, and I'm a man. So, which is a privilege that I'm learning more and more about over time. But wonderful, wonderful that you do this charity. And what's the name of the charity? I'll put a link to it so people can go find out a bit more what you do.
Friends of India NGO. It's really cool. It's definitely something that I would like to transition to doing, like 90% of the time, and just having my business kind of running itself or selling the company. Yeah, it's really cool.
Great. It's really, definitely very, very, very rewarding and very much needed, I guess, in the sort of world, which, people are very sheltered from hearing about, which is unfortunate. Yeah. The news is taken up by, Gareth Southgate changing his job rather than people, going for horrific things, which is a bit unfortunate, isn't it? So, yeah. And your own business, then, I guess, if people are getting married and want to go on a destination wedding, where might they find you?
Mountain Weddings Europe on Instagram is our Instagram handle, or mountainweddings.50k. It's fabulous. We specialise in weddings that have jaw-dropping views. So we started off just in the Alps, and we have like Mont Blanc as the backdrop, all these like glacial lakes and things. And now, like, I just find the most jaw-dropping locations around Europe, and we just do weddings in places. So now, we're venues on cliffs with like dramatic views and like best views you can imagine. We have the venues. Which is so fun and so cool, right? And it also makes the wedding so fun. Like, all of our weddings are so fun. They're the best dance floors I've ever seen, and no wedding I have been to that someone else has organised, not to blow my trumpet too much, but has ever replicated it. Like, I feel like, like one of our venues is the sort of the Walt Disney based Sleeping Beauty on. So it's like,
oh, the Maurice Vanstein, right?
No, the Chateau de Menton in Annecy.
Oh, I thought it was Schloss Neuschwanstein. I must be wrong. It must be something else, but maybe there's more than one.
Well, maybe they both claim it.
Yeah, I've been lied to and spent a lot of money at Slosh Van stuff.
Oh yeah, you can't say that. Couples married there, and that's been like their US wedding. That's just the venues, the locations. They're just it's a really cool business to be in, and great that it really encourages me traveling around to find more beautiful places.
Incredible. Is there anything else you want to kind of talk about your life abroad? I think you captured most of it, but is there anything that's burning as a you need to say? Or...
No, I don't think so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Vanessa, for your time. It's been great listening to you talk and about your kind of passion for it, and I guess proving to people that you don't need to go to university to have an incredible, successful lifestyle as you've had, and especially nowadays where people leave university and have just got crippling debts and doing the job that they could get when they graduated. So before they graduated, because it's a false dream, it feels like, for a lot of people. And well done you for not being a sheep, mauling your own paths, I suppose. And I'm sure you've met loads of sheep in the Alps, or goats perhaps, but it's...
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, just kind of, you don't need to go to university. You just, like, obviously, great, go to university if you want to, but if you don't, like, I was like, oh, I'm going because my friends are going. I'm literally I'm going to do event management because it's quite broad. God, like, I didn't even know I wanted to be a wedding planner. And you go to these places and, you get all this debt. And if you didn't want to, if you're not like, oh, I really want to learn more about this thing, go travel first. You can always come back to university, but you learn so much more. And the people that I hire, I would definitely hire someone who has a lot of travel experience on their CV, someone with a degree any day.
It sounds like you kind of cut your teeth by doing it, right? So you're now an events planner, a specific event in a wedding, but do the years doing hospitality behind the bar, you've done that role of the job. I guess you've learned all the kind of roles in hospitality to be able to deliver the service you delivered, which is probably why your dance floors are so much fuller, because you spend so many times in dance bars in Greece where people go all summer. Ibiza would have been the only place which might have trumped it, or Ayia Napa, but I'm sure it's still pretty amazing. And definitely, it's definitely a way of highlighting to people that it is, there's no wrong way or right way to do something if you're passionate about something. And in your case, you've proven that well, which is very inspirational to hear for me, as someone who spent too much money on university probably. But thank you, and I hope you enjoy your many trips that are coming up. I'm really jealous. I'll be in New York in the end of the summer, so it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Well, hopefully you have enjoyed the podcast. If you have enjoyed it and you have enjoyed listening to Vanessa, go check out what she does. And if you have any questions, reach out to her. I'm sure we'll put your socials on Instagram. We'll share it around and put it in the show notes. We can find you, ask questions, or try and get you to hire their wedding, or book it for them. It's very stressful, apparently. And then, if you have enjoyed it and found it insightful, then please let us know. Please do get in touch, and we'll see you next time for the Expat Pod.